Shout out to my guys Greg and Jordan with the official WardyNYM postgame jingle. And folks, we're back at it live after the Metsies take Game 1 in Philadelphia against the big filthy Phillies by a final score of 6-2. My guy Kenneth, thank you so much for the $2 haul. We appreciate you greatly. To everyone watching live, to our north of 1,000 concurrent viewers, we have a lot to break down in Mets land, so let's let it rip from the absolute top, folks. Zack Wheeler came into play. He was dotting the corners from the beginning. If you watch this game live, you're as frustrated as I was seeing Zack Wheeler come out to play and do everything to a T beautifully. Fastball up and in, sinker up and in, breaking pitch down away, breaking pitch down. You knew exactly what Wheeler was going to throw your way the entire time. It simply did not matter still. After Zack Wheeler strands a couple runners in scoring position with less than 2 outs midway through the ball game, after the Phillies have a 1-0 lead, and after Zack Wheeler still gives the Philadelphia Phillies 7 shutty of one-hit baseball on a 110 pitches, the Philadelphia Phillies do the best thing imaginable and give Zack Wheeler the Jacob deGrom treatment. I complimented Wheeler greatly on how he looks so much like Jake. From the windup, to the professionalism, to the consistency, to being a consistent year in and year out Cy Young caliber pitcher, and the Philadelphia Phillies made sure that he got the deGrom treatment with the lack of offense. After Wheeler is pulled from this ballgame after 7 shutty, we then head to the 8th inning. And in the 8th inning, the Mets pounce on not 1, on not 2, but 3, no 4! And you're thinking, what is Wardy about to say? 4, what does that number mean? You got 1 reliever, 2 reliever, 3 relievers, 4. Who's that 4th? That 4th is the, not reliever, but is the show, the godforsaken joke that you call an umpire, umpiring this ball game. When I tell you that I've never seen such lopsided, egregious calls in an NLDS matchup, I couldn't be telling you more of the truth right now. Earlier in the ball game, the Mets had some calls that were going their way on borderline strikes, as did the Phillies. But then an egregious call on Jose Iglesias for his first strike call and his first or second at bat was really brutal. And then we saw thereafter, even as the Mets were rallying for their amazing 5-run 8th inning that we're going to break down to a T here in a second, even as that 5-run 8th inning happened, every single strike call, the first strike call to all those batters for the most part, that took a called strike especially, was clearly out of the zone. Wasn't even nipping the corners, was completely out of it. I don't know who was trying to pay off the schmuck there in Philly, but thankfully it didn't matter. Philly fans can go home crying tonight, for at least tonight. The Mets have a Game 1 NLDS victory now as they head into Game 2 tomorrow. Same time, same place, same batter's box, same schmucks. The Mets are playing in Philly. Kenneth, thank you so much for the donation. We appreciate that. Pat, thank you so much for the donation. Pat says, great win, took 8 innings, but gone after a big dick swinging Mets here are the marching Mets, single after single after single. They marched right down the order there. It doesn't matter who you're throwing in. Hoffman doesn't matter. Strom doesn't matter. That other guy who I don't even know his name, I always butcher his last name, Orig, whatever it is. Either way, the Mets did exactly what they needed to do, and they have continued this philosophy that they have built all year long, which I will say, as I have preached, that is not sustainable for the Mets to consistently go out there and not hit a lick against the starting pitching and then dominate the bullpen. I will say they have continued to make me eat my words, mainly because they're going out and doing exactly that time after time after time again. This Mets team has had their story written on the wall a million times over and over and over. When you look at this Mets team, when you look at how they start ball games, no one here in the chat, including myself for in-game coverage, was shaking in their boots as Kyle Schwarber ripped that one to right off Senga for the first fastball thrown right down the pipe for early 1-0 leadoff lead for the Phillies. Not one fan was truly worried. And the reason why we weren't worried is because the Mets spent the past week trailing basically every single ball game. The Mets have trailed so many ball games this year and rallied back. There is no one more clutch. There is no one that has rallied more. There is no one that has come together as a group in clutch time and crunch time the way that this Metropolitan team has out of the National League. This is exactly why the Mets have the best record in Major League Baseball after May 30th. This is why the Mets were the best team in all of the National League East since that time especially, and this is exactly further proof as to why you having to break with your NLDS start versus not only means so much. I've told it time and time again. I'll say it once more, everybody. I will repeat it for my friends in the back that are first chiming in live on a replay that maybe aren't used to the coverage here at WardyNYM, as we are the #1 Mets post-game show here live on YouTube, wherever you get your post-game coverage, on audio platforms as well, Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. Leave a 5-star review as you guys check out the coverage here as well. But I'm here to tell you in our latest segment presented by BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Check them out today by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your next two for a total of $3 up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. But I'm here to tell you that this Mets team is different. And the reason why they are different is because every single time that you think that they're going to roll over, every single time that you think that they're going to die, every single time that you think that this Mets team cannot get the job done, they get the job done. They have defied the odds. They have won against Fangraphs. They have won against every odds maker imaginable. A team that had a smidge of a percent to make playoffs originally after being 11 games below 500. Fast forward all these months later, and we're not only talking about the Mets in postseason play, we're talking about the Mets up game 1 in Philly against the Phillies and riding that momentum. This was the initial point I want to make. Thank you guys for the donations. I greatly appreciate that. I will get to them all here shortly for the ones I haven't entered already. But listen, 2 years ago, the Philadelphia Phillies just cracked postseason play. They went all the way to the World Series. They had no rest. It didn't matter because they dominated as soon as they got into postseason play. We look at the Arizona Diamondbacks last year, just snuck into postseason play with that third wild card like the Phillies year prior, and they go on to kick the Phillies out of postseason contention in the NLCS and go all the way to the World Series. The Mets in 2024 kicked the Brewers out of the first round. For those that are not aware, every single team that has beat the Brewers in playoffs has at least made it to the World Series. No, that's not an exaggeration. And how the math has worked is there's been basically one team that's won it, 3 teams that don't, one team that's won, or pardon me, one team that doesn't win it, 3 teams that do, and then one team that doesn't win it, 3 teams that do. The Mets are completely in line for everything to go in hand. And yes, I'm not trying to jinx anything. We have no clue what the future holds. But what I can tell you is that this Mets team is absolutely a team of destiny. What they have done this year, no matter how their year ends, no matter when it may end, they have not only proven enough, but they have truly proven their worth for Steve Cohen, David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza to run it back with some of these guys and have an amazing 2025. But the best part is, folks, it is currently October 5th, 2024, and we're not here to talk about 2025. We're here to talk about the now. And the reason why we're here to talk about the now is because the Mets just came into Philly and got the job done in game 1 in a masterful, a dramatic, and truly a tremendous fashion. So if you haven't already, as you're chiming in live on a replay right now, make sure to smash a like and subscribe on as you enjoy the show. Thank you so much for doing exactly that. And let's break down this ball game because it all comes down to that 8th inning. But prior to that 8th inning, there was frustration. So let's get into that, everybody. And then from there, I'm going to answer as many comments, questions, concerns that I possibly can from the donations. Thank you guys all so much for exactly that. Lock in, baby. Lock in. Everything starts here in the first inning for the Mets as Francisco Lindor leads off the ball game with a line out. Vientos strikes out on 3 pitches. The Mets go down in order there terribly between Lindor, Vientos, Nimmo. They looked lifeless against a Wheeler who, as expected, was wheeling and dealing and locked in as a playoff performer that he certainly is. In the bottom of the first, Kodai Senga's making his long-awaited return to this Mets rotation. He's only going to give us a couple innings, but that's okay. Kodai Senga's first fastball thrown is 96 down the pipe as ripped to right by Kyle Schwarber. A terrible welcoming party back to the bigs here for Senga. A great one for Phillies and their fans as they get off to an early electric 1-0 lead. Citizens Bank Park is rolling. The place is going bananas. It's early 1-0, but even in that moment, just like on how we've been freaking out, just like how I told each and every one of you, or post-game, in-game coverage rather, 2 days ago when the Mets were losing 2-0 thanks to Budo giving up the back-to-back home runs, how I felt lifeless in that moment. I felt far from lifeless when Kyle Schwarber ripped that first home run this ball game. So much ball game to be had. I knew that a lot was going to change from now until the end of it. And then as we fast forward in this one, after that Schwarber home run, Senga would then settle in nicely as he would throw 4 straight sweepers and then get that first strikeout of the day with the ghost fork, the best breaking pitch, the absolute best swing and miss pitch, a true put-out pitch in Major League Baseball. The best in the game last year will be the best in the game again this year as long as Senga's out there, and he strikes out Trey Turner. Trey Turner went 0 on the day, which was massive. After that strikeout on Turner, Harper would get on with a walk. Mind you, there was a terrible call for that ball 4. It was absolute paint there that we saw that they still gave it as a ball, so he gets on there with an unfortunate 4+ pitch walk or so. Then we see Nick Castellanos, everybody, in the first, have himself a strikeout. Alec Bohm strikes out. Back-to-back Ks for Kodai Senga after allowing that leadoff home run. And the Mets are down 1-1. As we then head to the bottom of the first, top of the second, rather, Alonso strikes out after what was a solid at-bat, not terrible. Jose Iglesias lines out. Winker with a walk. Winker's a first Mets batter to solve Zack Wheeler today. So as we all saw together, everybody, and I want to see your further live reactions and live show in the comments down below, folks, as we're breaking down the latest amazing victory by a final score of, yes, 6-2. Jesse Winker did what no other Mets batter was able to do throughout the first 4 or 5, and that was take his pitches. Zack Wheeler had the complete game plan from the start in this ball game. We're going up and in, and we're going to be throwing those sinkers up and in as well, along with the fastballs, and we're also going to be going down and away there on the slide piece, or we're going to be working with that changeup too, down and in. Either way, we're going to do stuff that's really going to throw out these batters, and really was an MLB The Show type approach. Exact same way that I would pitch the guys, just dotting corners, and as soon as you go up high with the fastball, and then you go way down low with the breaking pitch. We saw a lot of that if it wasn't the repetitiveness, which was a back-to-back sinkers that we saw at times from Zack Wheeler. Back-to-back fastballs, same dot, it didn't matter. Zack Wheeler absolutely carved up, but so did the umpire by simply screwing the Mets. I've never seen an umpire be this egregious, where there was at least, and I truly mean at least, 10 calls that were egregiously against the Mets in this matchup. So many first pitch called strikes that were clear balls. There was even one call later in the game that was screwed on Peterson, perfectly dotted outside corner, that he initially called a strike and then shook up and said nope mid-sentence and then said it was a ball. I don't know why we could be this indecisive as an umpire and get away with it, but that just shows you the schmucks that we sadly have to deal with even in NLDS play. No less, the Mets go on to win by a final score of 6-2 because of that 8th inning breakout. But before we got to the 8th inning, what happened prior is just absolutely nuts. Rob Thompson, by the way, said it was stunning to see Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strom, all-stars this season, give up 5 runs tonight. They haven't done this since we had them. I love it. The Phillies are shook early. The relievers getting rocked by the Mets. They don't know what it's like to get taste of the Mets, which is them absolutely kicking their teeth in the 8th+ inning. That's why this Mets team has been clutch. That's why this team is certainly a team of destiny. But as we get back into breaking down this ballgame, this 6-2 victory, a massive one for the Mets here, we would see after Jose Iglesias lines out, Winker with a great at-bat. He gets on with a walk there, takes his pitches up and in. Nothing else happens, obviously. And the bottom of the second, Stott with a pop out, JT with a strikeout on the ghost fork, and Marsh flies out. And at 1-2-3, your final line for Kodai Senga is as follows: 2 innings, 1 hit, 1 earned run, and that does it for Kodai with 3 strikeouts on the day. As Lana Wade returned back to this Mets rotation. Not complaining there with Kodai at all. Thank you so much for being back, Senga. Damn, did we miss you in that ghost fork. In the top of the third, Taylor with a terrible strikeout. Tyrone Taylor had 2 really bad at-bats today. So did Mark Vientos, but the difference is that in the at-bats that Mark Vientos wasn't striking out, he was providing offense for the Mets. Tyrone Taylor had nothing, and I mean nothing, on the offensive end for the Mets in this one, and the brilliant managing by Carlos Mendoza to pinch hit for Harrison Bader later in the ballgame to bring Harrison into the ballgame would be massive. Something that I initially had a critique on as to if this made sense or not, but my goodness gracious, what a tremendous move by Mendoza later on in this one. But before we got there, a bad strikeout by Taylor, and Alvey and Lindor out to end in the third. In the bottom of the third, David Pearson comes in and he gets Kyle Schwarber there with a bloop at 1-out single. Turner with his fielder's choice, and that he would be safe after looking clearly out on the pickoff attempt. They reviewed it, they challenged it. Trey Turner was out every day of the week there. Pete Alonso clearly had the tag on his butt, right below his butt area there, and they still gave it to him even after review. Everything was going against the Mets from an officiating standpoint in this matchup, and thankfully it still didn't matter when everything was said and done. Because afterwards, after we saw that botched job, David Pearson would escape that jam unscathed after walking Harper and then getting a Nicky C flyout. At the top of the fourth, we would see the Mets get a single for Mark Vientos. Mark makes an adjustment. Vientos does exactly what I'm dying and hoping that he would do. And what does Mark do? He absolutely turns on the second sinker thrown up and in on him. The first one he took, the second one was going to be for a ball, but he got all in on that one. He rips a single for his first hit of the day. The Mets have a leadoff runner on. Nimmo gets on with a walk, and the Mets do nothing after having 2 on, no out here at the top of the fourth. This was the first blown opportunity for the Mets in the ball game where they absolutely needed a pounce and did anything but exactly that. Jose Iglesias sadly grounded into a double play to end that inning. As we head the bottom of the fourth, we see the Mets here. Pardon me, folks. Let me just screenshot this because I'm going to relay that in a second. A nice little stat from Anthony Como. But we saw Alec Bohm with a ground out, Stott with a walk, and Marsh first pitch swinging for an out. They're all the way at the wall to Marte that we saw in the bottom of the fourth. As we advance to the bottom of the fifth in this top of the fifth in this ball game, Winker grounds out. Marte with a hit by by pitch. I'm really upset with that hit by pitch. Thankfully, Marte was okay and stayed in the ball game. Afterwards, we saw Taylor with another bad strikeout on 3 pitches, sorting up. He's throwing up and in there, which is Wheeler to Taylor, and Taylor simply had no recipe for it whatsoever. Afterwards, Alvarez would strike out to end it, which was a terrible call on him as well. Alvy got screwed in this left and right. A lot of Mets batters got screwed in this matchup, but that goes without saying. As we advance to the 6th, because thankfully nothing happens there in the bottom of the 5th, after we would see a terrible, absolutely horrendous walk to Rojas after an 0-2 count, 0-2 start to a count, a terrible call to give him ball 1 there, which was that outside corner pitch that I alluded to from Peterson. We then get to the 6th. Lindor gets on with a walk. Vientos strikes out on 3 pitches. Alonso K's. We get into the bottom of the 6th. Reed Garrett comes in for a 1-2-3. He gets Nicky C. Castellanos for a ground out. Stock grounds out. Easy work there for Reed Garrett. In the 7th, we see Jose Iglesias with a pop out. Winker with a walk again. Another strong at bat there by Jesse Winker. Starling Marte with an infield pop out, and then Taylor grounds it out, and then more awful calls by the schmuck you call an umpire to end the inning. In the bottom of the 7th, Reed Garrett works a gorgeous 1-2-3 inning that we see there, which sets everything else up for the 8th inning, folks. In the 8th inning, here comes Hoffman for the Phillies. And for the Phillies, they get absolutely rocked. Why? Because the inning starts with Francisco El Tro Alvarez with a single that he rips. Alvy is then pulled from the ballgame as Harrison Bader comes in as a pinch runner. And I'm going to be completely honest, as I said before, and I'll say it again, I did not love initially Alvarez being pulled. The same way that I didn't even love Vientos being pulled later in this ball game for Acuna again for defensive reasons, only because if the Phillies rally back, you want these bats in the lineup. I think having those bats in the lineup is far greater of a certainty versus the uncertainty that you get there from their defense at times, whether it's Alvarez struggling to block a ball from getting past him at times, or Vientos not having the best hot corner defense. I didn't think it made nearly enough sense, but at the end of the day, it still works out beautifully for Carlos Mendoza. If you're wondering how exactly that works, it's because after Alvy gets on with a single there and then Bader goes in a pinch run for him in the 8th inning, we would then see Francisco Lindor grind out a beautiful walk there against Hoffman. 2 on, no out here for the 2nd time today. Would the Mets pounce? Would they be able to pounce? They would do exactly that. Unlike the 4th inning where they strand those runners on 1st and 2nd with no out, Mark Vientos drives in the Mets' first run the ball game with an RBI single. Yeah, that ties the ball game for the Mets 1-1. Afterwards, we would see the Mets on a hit spree thanks to Brandon Nimmo, more like Brandon Himmo, baby. He drives in the Mets' 2nd run of the ball game. He rips an RBI single to give the Mets a 2-1 lead. Then Pete Alonso, the polar bear, after having some unfortunate luck earlier in the game, he barrels one big time for a key RBI sac fly, an insurance run from the Mets. 3 runs unanswered in the 8th inning, and Hoffman comes out of the ball game. Here comes Strom, and here comes Strom, not a problem, because I thought it was absolutely hilarious because they had Strom come in, my apologies, after the Vientos RBI that tied it, when mighty Strom absolutely torches, Nimmo absolutely torches lefties. Lefty hitting. He has been tremendous throughout his career. He was tremendous again this season, and we saw the Mets go on to score a massive 5-run, yes, 5-run 8th inning, all thanks to those hit heroics, not only from Nimmo, not only from Alvy, not only from Vientos, but afterwards we would see Jose Iglesias with the best at-bat imaginable. The at-bat starts 0-1 on a clear ball for a strike. So far out of the zone, it's not even funny. You literally could have read a book by time you were going to try to catch up to that ball because it was nowhere close to the strike zone. 0-1 on the count. It quickly becomes 0-2. The problem for the Philadelphia Phillies and Strom is that you're facing one of the best 2-strike hitters in Major League Baseball. Jose Iglesias grinds out a 10-pitch at-bat. 8 straight hacked-away foul pitches leads to a single. That single would be vital. The Mets would drive in a run shortly after as J.D. Martinez comes in a pinch hit for Jesse Winker, knowing that's not going to be a favorable matchup for Jesse. It would have been lefty-lefty. You bring in JDM, and JDM makes the difference. He rips himself an opposite field RBI single to give the Mets their continued lead. They would go on to score 5 runs there in that massive 8th inning, and they would never look back. 3 pitchers utilized, all new relievers here for the Philadelphia Phillies after Zack Wheeler went 7 innings of 110-pitch baseball. Listen to this, folks. Zack Wheeler did everything in his power. The umpire, the schmuck that he is, did everything in his power, and it didn't matter. And then that insult to injury, the Mets added even more insurance, because as we advance to the 9th inning, after Phil Maton had a very shaky bottom of the 8th, but he gets out of that jam unscathed, thankfully. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of 2-out work, but we got to it done, thankfully. Then we advance to the 9th inning. Harrison Bader. What does Bader do? He gets on with a single, and then he goes on, and yes, he drives in a run. He single-handedly goes on, steals second base. It looks like he's originally out, but they bobble the ball. That is stopped there at second. That run is driven in by Brandon Nimmo again. Brandon with his second RBI of the day. That is why he's on the thumbnail of the show that you guys are watching live on a replay right now. That leads the Mets to a 6-1 lead for Ryan Stanek, as we were all calling for in the bottom of the 9th inning. We want Ryan Stanek. We got Ryan Stanek. Stanek with 2 outs, sadly allows a run to be driven in there. Clemens rips his first RBI hit, which would be a double. He comes in as a pinch hitter. Ryan Stanek puts the foot down. He gets the curb stomped down. He steps on their throats, and the Mets find themselves finally with a 6-2 victory. They take game 1, and I just have to ask all my Mets fans watching live on a replay right here, right now, how the hell are we feeling, baby? How are we feeling? How are you not want to jump on the edge of your seat? How do you not want to go sprinting right now? I don't care what time of day it is for you. If it's day, if it's evening, if it's night, I don't care. These are the kind of wins that make you just want to absolutely bolt out of here and go absolutely bananas. I am salivating at the mouth of not only tomorrow's game, but game 3 at home at Citi Field on Tuesday. I simply cannot wait, everybody. And when we look at the pitching for the boys, when we take a look at the breakdown, as I mentioned, they had the heroics, they had things happening. Kodai, David, Garrett, Maton, Stanek. I know Maton wasn't perfect. Trust me, I know. I know Stanek wasn't perfect. The 2 former Houston Astros, both with tremendous playoff numbers. Just don't tell Phil Maton that in his Game 2 loss against the Brewers. But tremendous job by this pitching staff. Kodai Senga on that ghost fork was disgusting as ever. The fastball velo wasn't overwhelming that we saw, but this was his first game back. I wasn't expecting anything overly crazy here. The boys to get 5 runs in the 8th inning, guys. Like, the fact that I'm not even all that shocked by this is the best part of it, right? We are spoiled now to a point where we expect rallies from this Mets team. Because when we look on the hitting end, when we break it down to everything on the offensive end for this Mets team, they did have enough going. Not a lot going early, obviously. Zack Wheeler was their kryptonite, that goes without saying, but after Zack Wheeler's day was done, so was the Phillies' day. The Phillies needed Zack Wheeler to give them a complete game shutout, because that was the only way the Philadelphia Phillies were going to win this ball game. The Mets go out, they jump on every reliever imaginable there in the 8th inning, and that would be the X factor. The fact that the Mets end up out hitting the Phillies in this ball game is crazy. The Mets out hit the Phillies in game 1 of the NLDS, 8-5, 6 runs to 2. Francisco Lindor did not have a hit today, but he did have a run scored and 2 walks. Therefore, Lindor is out on 167 average, a 671 OPS to kickstart this year's playoffs. Mark Vientos, a 2-for-4 day with a pair of bad strikeouts, but also some great hitting, and starting the Mets runs in the 8th inning, a 313 average, a 626 OPS here. We saw Acuna, 1-0-for-1, no hits yet, obviously. Brandon Nimmo, 2-for-4 with 2 RBIs for Brandon, a 313 average, a 702 OPS for Himmo. Pete Alonso, 0-for-4 today with 3 strikeouts. Not a good day at the plate for Pete, but he did have that lone RBI sac fly to give the Mets a 3-1 lead, so that in itself was important. Alonso, 154 average, 679 OPS. Jose Iglesias, oh my God, has a 1-for-4 day with a run scored, but that lone hit was a massive hit. A 10-pitch at-bat after it started 0-2. Absolutely insane. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that, 1,200. He says he's happy. I'm happy too. How can you not be happy after a game like this? Jose Iglesias with a 160 average, 167, a 334 OPS. Jesse Winker 0-for-1 with 2 walks, a 167 average, and a 1,000 OPS. Imagine having those splits for more than just a couple games. That would be insane. JDM with the pinch hit heroics there, an RBI single to give the Mets an ultimate 5-1 lead and a 6-2 victory at the end of the day. He has himself a 333 average, a 762 OPS. We saw Luis Torrens come in for defensive replacement after they pulled Alvey for Bader in the 8th inning. Tyron Taylor, a really bad day at the plate, 125 average, 313 OPS. Francisco Alvarez, 1-for-3, a 143 average, a 286 OPS. And Harrison Bader with the pinch hit heroics there, 2 runs scored and a stolen bag, a 1,000 average and a 2,000 OPS. Kind of nice, kind of not terrible if you ask me. So that's what we got there on the offensive end from the boys. As a total, as a collective whole, everybody, this Mets team is special. I don't know how many times I need to reiterate this to each and every one of you. This Mets team is special. so special that I would argue that I not only expect them to go out and hopefully win this series, but I firmly believe that what the Mets have in front of them is nothing that they can't handle. Yes, I know this might seem like a crazy statement for a team that got carved up, but here's the thing. Everyone's doubting this Mets team. They continue to doubt this Mets team. They've had the best record since the end of May. They've been consistent on rallying back. They've had some of the most high strikeout rates out of any bullpen in all of the American, not just MLB as a whole, but specifically the National League. They have had a lot of things going against them when it comes to scheduling and everything, and they are riding this wave of momentum until the very end. That is what is so damn exciting about this Mets team, because they are not rolling over and dying. No matter the circumstance, no matter the leverage, no matter the situation, it does not matter. This team simply does not waver. Just give me 1 second, folks. Let's double check one thing real quick. Alrighty, folks, now I gotta ask each and every one of you, before we continue on with our live show here, as I have something I'm very excited to share with our amazing sponsor at BetUS, my question to each and every one of you is, were you guys ever doubting? Were you ever doubting at any point in this ballgame that the Mets for certain weren't going to win, that they weren't going to rally back? Because after we had the 4th inning where you left 2 on with no out, I wasn't feeling overly confident then, but I wasn't freaking out either. I just knew it was one of those games where the Mets just needed to break the ice at some point, and something good was going to happen, but they needed to do it before the Phillies were able to add insurance. My big concern in this one, outside the crew just doing a horrendous job from start to finish, literally needs to be ashamed of themselves. The fact that they're paid hundreds, let alone thousands of dollars to just be god-awful at your job means how easy it is to just be getting good paydays at the end of the day in this country. If that's what we're coming down to. Just be god-awful, be blind, and you're going to be hired as an MLBPA, not MLBPA, but just as an MLB, umpire, part of their union. It's as simple as that. But how many of you guys doubted the Mets, if anything? Yes, you can't depend on hero ball every time. You can't depend on hero ball every time. I agree with that. The same way that you cannot be one of those Mets teams that finds yourself in a position not hitting a lick every single game up until the 8th, 9th inning. That will lead to their demise. That will ultimately hurt them in the end. And we all know that this Mets team has not, and I truly mean has not, been favorable on the offensive end for good stretches of baseball the past week. When we look at each of their head-to-head matchups, they have not fared well for the most part at all against their respective starters, but it simply hasn't mattered with how they've shown up late in ball games when they've needed to most. Am I happy? Am I proud of this team? Absolutely. Do I think it's sustainable? No, I don't. But I'm also the same Mets fan that was yapping about this exact thing going back to May when the Mets were winning ball games after being shut down for the first 5 to 7 innings and then attacking the bullpen. Even then, even in those situations, the boys still came out victorious in the end, and that was so massive. That was so vital to begin with. I cannot get over this Mets team, the Miracle Mets, the Destiny Mets, the Magic Mets, in which we literally have a Magic Mets sign right there that you guys can see. Mets Magic, whatever you want to call it. This team has something brewing. Literally amazing what they're doing. Let's see. I felt like Wheeler had us. Wheeler had us the whole Wheeler was wheeling and dealing this entire ball game. Zack Wheeler was fantastic against the Mets. I envied it so much because of how much I missed the guy during his time in Queens. It killed me to see him dominate us. But seriously, Zack Wheeler was just one of those guys that you knew he was dotting corners. You knew he was going to MLB The Show, sinker up and in, force him up and in to every single batter the entire ball game. But the Mets simply could not adjust enough in time. But the best part, everyone has a shelf life. Zack Wheeler has a shelf life. In the case of Zack Wheeler, he had a shelf life to the point that they said we simply got to stop because Zack Wheeler can't go past 110 pitches at 7 innings. That was the demise of the Phillies, and their offense, or lack thereof, is mostly to blame. Now, listen. When we talk about the Mets pitching, there's one more thing that I really want to highlight. But before I highlight a bit more on Mets pitching, because we are going to do that just in a second, everybody, I do want to talk to you all briefly about our amazing sponsor that we also have here on the channel. For many of you guys and gals, if you don't know already, that is going to be our awesome friends, America's #1 sportsbook at, yes, BetUS. BetUS, everybody, who has you covered all your sports betting needs by using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That way you two get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, $125 on your next two, for a total of 3 deposits up to $2,000 with a bonus. And I'm here to relay my picks tonight, folks. No, we're not going with our MLB picks. We are going with our fight picks. Yes, you heard that correctly, folks. UFC 307 is, in fact, tonight. I'm a huge fight fan, and while the Mets got the job done, let's see how my UFC picks are going to do. You guys can tail these picks should you wish for all my respective sports bettors that go to betus.com.pa for all your sports betting needs. Bet responsibly, but I'm absolutely hammering here Alex Pereira. I love Khalil Roundtree. He's a tremendous tremendous story. I wish him well. But Alex Pereira, who is literally one of the best champions in UFC's history, who's always fighting, who's always consistent. I love him in this matchup still. I'm wishing Khalil well. I still hope Alex wins, though. We have Buckley and Stephen Thompson. I think Buckley, just his size and frame alone, is going to best himself between himself and Thompson. I like that matchup. Jose Aldo, the veteran, the former longtime champ in which Conor McGregor ended that tenure. Doesn't matter. A decade later, Jose Aldo coming out of retirement this year because of how good that he still is. I love him there as the money line underdog at plus 105. We're going with a 4-leg parlay as we're going to hammer Kayla Harrison here. Pardon me, not Kayla. Yeah, we're going to go with Kayla Harrison here in her matchup against Ketlin Ferreira. Kayla is absolutely yoked. I expect her to have a big fight there. And we know that Kevin Holland can be hit or miss, so we're going Kayla at the minus 1,100. She's the biggest favorite on this card, absolutely. This entire card, folks, this entire 4-leg parlay is going to be 10 to win you 30. And then we're going to put 10 on each of the individual bets, 2 out of the 4. Again, if you guys are a fight fan, I highly implore you all to check out our awesome friends at BetUS that have the latest lines for UFC 307 beginning tonight. That is how I'll be spending my evening, along with watching further Mets highlights and probably cutting out my edits and my reactions from this Game 1 NLDS victory to post later tonight or early tomorrow for each and every one of you. But that's the latest from our amazing friends at BetUS. So as we hop back in this one, everybody, as we get back into breaking down the thick, all the good things about this amazing victory, Yoshima with the $5 holla has this to say: the fact that we were able to hold the Phillies to 1 run, I knew once Wheeler came out, we'd attack the bullpen, and that's exactly what they did. LFGM, baby. LFGM indeed, Yoshima. You'll love when things go exactly the way that they're supposed to, the way that they did in this matchup. Thank you kindly for that donation. And folks, we're not going to be too long-winded with our show today, so as we continue on with this one, let me break down the following for each and every one of you. This Mets pitching staff, what stands out so much to me is that they shut down this Phillies lineup. Let's bear in mind, this Phillies lineup on paper is one of the most star-studded and stacked, star-loaded in all the National League. For Kyle Schwarber to be the biggest hitter of the day for the Phillies, to be the only Philly hitter to give you 2 hits is massive enough. Yoshima, thank you for the donation. Lamar Lackey, thank you for the donation. I'm going to get to all your donos in a second, everybody. I realized I didn't answer ones earlier, so I'm going to go back and answer those in a minute. But for the Phillies to have just 5 hits against the total of 5 pitchers the Mets threw today, including David Pearson at just 3, which means that he will be set to pitch for the Mets if they need to pitch him, say for Game 4 or Game 5 of the series. He will go out there and give us what we need from him. I'm loving it right now. Trey Turner with a 0 for 4 day. Bryce Harper 1 for 2 with a pair of walks. Castellanos 1 for 4. Alec Boehm 0 for 4. Bryson Stott 0 for 3. JT Real Muto 0 for 3. Brandon Marshall for 4. Johan Rojas 0 for 2. Cody Clemens with the RBI double, but it didn't matter. This team did such a fantastic job on attacking this Philly lineup, just as good, if not better, than what Zack Wheeler and the Phillies did against the Mets. If we exclude Zack Wheeler, bullpen goes completely to the Mets in this one. They absolutely kicked the teeth in on some guys, and now the Phillies will likely be without Hoffman, they will be without Strom, and they'll be without Tanner Banks, I'm sure, tomorrow too. So we're going to be the Philadelphia Phillies without some of their key relievers tomorrow. Yes, they're going to have Carlos Estevez. Yes, they're still going to have Jose Alvarado. Yes, they're going to have some other key pieces there, but still, this was a fantastic start to this series, and I have to give massive credit where credit is due to Reed Garrett for going out there with 2 bulldog outings back-to-back, for Reed Garrett to have a 1-2-3 inning after what we saw there, and the 6th inning for the 7th was absolutely gorgeous. Huge tip of the cap there to Reed Garrett. A brilliant job by him in this outing in its entirety. And as we advance for the Mets into Game 2 tomorrow, everybody, you're going to have Luis Severino on the bump for this Phillies team facing Christopher Sanchez. And according to the skipper, the Phillies himself, and Rob Thompson, he said the following: yeah, we're starting Chris Sanchez tomorrow instead of Tuesday because we know it's going to be a hostile environment on Tuesday at Citi Field. So, one, that just shows you the lack of mental toughness that Sanchez has, which I love. The Phillies don't feel confident sending him out there for Game 3 against the Mets at Citi Field, so they're doing a Game 2 at Citizens Bank Park, hoping that the home crowd, they can really feed off of that. I would love to see the Mets kick their teeth in again tomorrow. This is a Mets team that hasn't fared well on Sunday, specifically against this specific hitter, that being a pitcher rather, and Christopher Sanchez. Funny enough, let's not forget when the Mets actually lost 2-1 against Christopher Sanchez in Philly the last time that we played the Phillies in Philly Forest series, the Mets dropped 2 out of 3, and Sanchez and the Mets had no hits on that Sunday. Thankfully, this is playoff baseball, however. This is not the same situation as regular season, and this Mets team, I firmly believe, is going to go out guns a-blazing. I really think, knowing that Christopher Sanchez gives you such a different look than what you got from Zack Wheeler today, I not only expect, but folks, I'm telling you right now, I'm calling it. The Mets are scoring at least 2 runs in the first 4 innings tomorrow, should they get offense going. If they get offense going, expect 2 runs in the first 4 innings. I really like that possibility. I do. And who knows? Maybe it'll even happen the first 2 or 3. Can't deal with Citi Field. I know, it's absolutely hilarious. Like, imagine being the Phillies manager, knowing how Philly fans are, and being intimidated by the potential X factors that are Citi Field and a sold-out Mets crowd. That's amazing. That really is. It shows you just how stupid they are. It really does. Kodai Senga said, was asked if he could pitch again in the series. If they could call me, I just prepare to pitch that day. I love that, Senga. You're such a team player. We appreciate that. And no, there's nothing regarding Lindor, Peter. Don't lie again in the chat or you get a quick boot. Simple as that. He's fine right now. He's playing with an injury. We know that, but he's still fine. Ralph with the $5 hollow. Ralph says, frayed nerves only because we still rolling. This team is magic. LFGM. LFGM Ralph, thank you so much for the kind words. We appreciate you greatly. The light show is going to be electric. I cannot wait to see it at Citi Field. Are you guys as ecstatic as I am for when we see the light show and when we see everybody in the Citi Field crowd sing My Girl with Francisco Lindor when he walks up to the plate? I know I'm ecstatic for that. I don't know about you, but I can't wait. JV with the 250, thank you so much, my man. He says, assuming the score is irrelevant and you're a single away from the cycle, you hit a gapper in the outfield, do you stop at first base to record a single and get your cycle? So, oh, it's okay. So if you need a single, but you know you get a gapper, but you just go for a single, yeah, I mean, I wonder if they would try to do the scorebook any different if you just stayed at first base. Ideally, usually how hitters go about this, unless it's a blowout, unless they really have nothing to play for, they're still going to leg that out into a double. Professional hitters never go out of their way to do less of what they can do more on a play. So if they know for certain that they have a double in the gap, they're never going to slow down and just stand there at first base. The only way that really would happen, if I could think of an idea, would be if, say, a team's winning like 15-0, you're facing, the position player of the opposing team, and you're a single away from the cycle, then I think that's what the exception is. Otherwise, I don't think it makes all that much sense, JV. Thank you for the donation, though. I appreciate that. Let's see, folks. More of your comments from earlier. And Alex with a $5 holler earlier says, Wheeler, 112 pitches, maybe gas. I know. Amazing. I love the fact that we got him worked as much as we did. Joshua Perez with the $10 holler. Josh says, Wardy, this is our year. Let's sweep these Phillies. Keep the momentum going. Sanchez going to get lit up tomorrow. Mark my words. Let's go Mets, baby. D-Mac earlier said, chance of Mark Vientos in the stadium now. Love to see that. Love it. Yoshima, great member of 44 months earlier, said, big win to rob the bank. This team never quits. Survived a terrible ump who had money line on the Phillies. Let's go rob the bank again tomorrow. Absolutely, Yoshima. Thank you so much for the donation and for the kind words. We appreciate you guys greatly. Thank you all for coming in for the latest edition of our New York Metropolitan post-game coverage here, folks. I'm going to get out of here in just a second, but before I do, make sure to smash that like and subscribe on your way out. It is greatly appreciated. Mets take game 1 in an amazing and dramatic fashion as they have all season long, and now the boys look out to do more damage and look to get a 2-0 game lead on the Philadelphia Phillies tomorrow in Philly. I will see you all same time as tomorrow. Actually, I should be live a little bit earlier than tomorrow, barring changes. We'll see. We'll be live anywhere from 3:40 to 4 p.m. Eastern with a 4:08 start. We'll be live for in-game coverage throughout the entire ball game, and then we'll have you cover with post-game coverage directly after. I love you guys all to death. Thank you all so much for the donations. Thank you all so much for the kind words. Mets take game 1 in a tremendous, dramatic fashion, and they look to take game 2 with Sevy on the bump tomorrow, facing off against the Southpaw Sanchez and the Phillies. Thank you guys once more. Let's effing go Mets, baby. Spam the W's, and on our way out, we're going to let it rip one more time. One more time with the official NLDS Game 1 victory. WardyNYM post-game jingle, baby. Shout out to my guys Greg and Jordan with the official WardyNYM postgame jingle. Thank you guys for watching live on a replay. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great one, folks. And